Okay, guys, here we are with number 12 of the draft analysis for the NCPL Commander Draft. Today we're going to look at Connor Peterson's draft here. So first off, he drafted Tyrantrum as his captain. Um, so I scored his overall team at 38. You guys are going to see a lot of teams kind of scored around this area. I couldn't really differentiate from standard OU teams to this, and I feel like the 38 is on the higher end, despite not being like high 40s. I think the high 30s and into the 40s is the higher end of teams. So, but anyways, starting with his offense, I scored it an 8. So he has a lot of offensive threats here, and a lot of his defensive mons can be offensive threats as well. Similar to whose team was it? I think it was Jared's team. Oh, dang, who was it? There was a team on here that had every defensive Pokemon was an offensive threat as well. And this is kind of the case with Connor's team here to a lesser extent. But you're looking at defensive Pokemon like Silvally, Mega Adino, potentially Mr. Mime and Electros, especially Gourgeist, people are going to look at as defensive Pokemon. But these Pokemon actually have decent attack or strong setup potential. So, but I'll start off with Tyrantrum being the focal point of this team and the focal point of offense, honestly. Right after, so Toxicroak would be second in my opinion, but yeah, Tyrantrum being the focal point of this offensive team. So Tyrantrum, as we've seen, can just easily sweep a team after one D dance. I mean, Rockhead Head Smash. If you're getting that 80% and it's hitting, base 150 plus stab on a mon that has over 350 attack. Let me get the exact calculation here for you guys. Tyrant. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'll just use the Pokemon calculator one. A adamant Tyrantrum scarf. Yes, scarfed. Has 375 attack. So if we go Jolly, it's still 341 on a base 150 move that's got stab added to it. So you put a band or an orb on or something like that, or expert bell, or an item that just boosts rock moves so that he's not taking chip damage, and you get one Dragon Dance boost in. I mean, holy shit, man. It doesn't even need to set up. I mean, you just get this thing on a viable switch or a free switch, which I will talk about later. Connor's team does help it come in a lot easier than most teams. It's really gonna punch some big holes in your team. So, but that's not. I mean, that's not all that Tyrantrum's gonna do. He does have options to use Tyrantrum as a rocker if he doesn't have a good matchup for Tyrantrum offensively. But Tyrantrum having Rockhead and Strongjaw, I mean, it can just run Head Smash, Close Combat, Earthquake. It has good coverage too, so I believe it gets. Where is it? Yes, it does get Play Rough. It gets Poison Fangs, Psychic Fangs, so it gets attacks to help the Strongjaw as well. It does have Scale Shot if it needs to boost the speed. It's not just boost the attack. It does have high defense, so that is viable for it to run. But as I said earlier, it can run a defensive set if it needs to, or like a utility set, since it's Connor's only stealth rocker on the team. Do I think it's going to come very often like that? No, but it is an option for his team. So generally, we're going to see this thing either life orbed or so. We should see the scarf more often, but I think Connor's been banning it, which is still not a bad option by any means. I just think in this low tier draft, it doesn't need the band. His team has lots of ways to get little chip damage off, which Tyrantrum will need to, a Scarf Tyrantrum to clean up. So, and it also has ways to get in and set up Dragon Dance. So, moving on to the Senti Scorch, though, this is a mon that I would say is an offensive Pokemon, but I don't know if everybody looks at it as like just a pure offensive Pokemon. The thing is it gets Coil, and it has a special move. I think that's unique to only it, and one other one, Heat Heat Mole, called Fire Lash. So Fire Lash has a 100% chance to lower the opponent's defense. So this is a Pokemon that you can't just stand in front of and just wall it, because it's either going to coil up or it's just going to Fire Lash you to death and continuously lower your defense. Not to mention, this is going to force you to switch. So again, this is another way that he can get free switches for his other Pokemon. So but just like Tyrantrum, this actually has pretty good coverage, and you can run Senti-Scorch in Special Attack too. Its Special Attack is 90 and its attack is 115, but 90 is nothing to scoff at, and it has good options for Special Attack as well. I'll go over the physical set first. You can run Leech Life, Fire Lash, Knockoff, Power Whip, Flare Blitz. What do we have here? If you need certain things, you could run like Skitter Smack, Thunder Fang, Lunge, but generally you're going to see Knockoff, Fire Lash, Leech Life, Power Whip. These things are, Leech Life especially, going to help it survive a lot longer, since it does have a pretty high base HP at 100 and base 90 special defense. Base 65 defense, you generally don't want it in against like a physical threat. So but onto the special attacking side of this Senti-Scorch, like I was mentioning earlier, it does have access to Fire Blast, Scorching Sands, Scald, which is really crazy. I would really like to see a special Senti-Scorch brought at some point. Has Venoshock as well. So I mean, it has options to run special. This is something that we'll see a lot of teams do later in the draft, is run these really wild sets. Because obviously everybody's going to be very well prepped and looking at game replays. So this is something that we'll see later on in the drafts, some crazy wild sets. This is one set that I'd like to see. So, but yes, Senti-Scorch, a very strong option, as we've seen Connor lead off with, making sure the opponent is not playing too passive and either setting up Senti-Scorch or scaring his opponent's Pokemon out. So next up we have the Gourgeist, though. So this is a Mon that I think a lot of people will look at as a defensive Pokemon. I do myself, but this Pokemon actually has good attack, and it has a good way to boost its special attack as well, and it has good special attack coverage. So just here. So its attack is base 90, defense base 122, HP base 65, special attack 58, special defense 75, and 84 speed. So the thing about this being an offensive Pokemon, it has 84 speed and 90 attack, and it learns Nasty Plot. So it can be a physical or special set as well. While the special set kind of lacks, since base 58 is really low. This is a lower tier draft, so that's still really viable. But for the physical set, which I think is its best set, it gained the new move in Gen 8 called Poltergeist, which is a 110 base shadow ghost move. And this really helps a lot of ghost types like Gourgeist. So it's able to run two moves that are over base 100, Stab, Power Whip, Poltergeist. And then it also has Shadow Sneak, just to help it clean up. And like I was mentioning in Josh's analysis yesterday, or today, sorry, having defensive Pokemon that can come in and clean up with something like Shadow Sneak is really good, as long as they're not too passive. The reason that I say this is because it gives you a safe way to scout what the opponent's trying to do next and what their options are. So Gourgeist, not only just having these offensive options, it does have reliable recovery and synthesis. It does also learn, Leech Seed. So it can be very annoying to deal with. It does learn Explosion as well, Destiny Bond, Curse. So it does have a lot of options to boost and be offensive. But on the special side, I really want to mention this about it, since it has really good special attacks, which I was quite surprised about. So it learns Nasty Plot for one, which is crazy. So we'll just go to Gourgeist, and I'll tell you guys. So I'm going to go Timid. So if we go 252 special attack Gourgeist, that reaches 215 in Timid. So 215 on a Nasty Plot, So that's going to hit 430. That's actually quite high for base 58. A lot of people probably wouldn't think that's going to do very much, but once you get one nasty plot in, oh god, the fucking headset's going out. Sorry guys. So once you get one nasty plot in, this thing's going to be at 430 special attack if you're maxed out and in timid nature. So, but its coverage is what's really interesting, and I think this will take a lot of people off guard if they're not prepped accordingly. So, it does have Shadow Ball, Fire Blast, Giga Drain, Moon Blast, which is crazy. Not a lot of Pokemon learn Moon Blast, so not even some Fairy types learn Moon Blast. So that's really, really good. Psychic. So we got Sludge Bomb. There's one other one here. Interesting note, it does learn Grassy Glide, so that would have been an interesting option. And Energy Ball, Dark Pulse. And that's really it for the special attacks. But I mean, you see the coverage in that. You can't have another grass come in and wall it, so it could run like Leech Seed, Fire Blast for that grass coverage. Because I mean, that's one of the only ways to stop grass types if they're leech seeding is the grass type or the sap sipper. So really good coverage in the special attack side, and I expect to see that definitely. So the thing with Connor's team here that I'm gonna continue to mention throughout this is it has a lot of options to throw people off guard in terms of prep. So if Connor is building this team and he needs to prep differently since people are starting to see what he likes to run, and he's noticing that in matchups, he has a lot of options to switch it up and to catch people off guard. So I'm going to get into another Pokemon that can run physical or special. So that's going to be 3 right off the bat. There's more than that, so this is quite an interesting option, and one of the highlights of his team being able to run physical or special. So Gourgeist's physical attacks that I didn't fully mention though, it does get Explosion, it does get Phantom Force, it does get Rock Slide, Seed Bomb. Now these are options that you're generally not going to see as often as Poltergeist and Power Whip if it's an offensive, physically built Pokemon. So back to my point, this is just, it can be an offensive Pokemon, and that's a really great trait for Connor's team, having his defensive Pokemon being able to build offensively as well. So moving on though, I don't want to spend too much time with Gourgeist. I just think it's a really neat pick for his team. Toxicroak. So Toxicroak, as we've seen, is a great pick in this type of draft. We've seen Toxicroak in lower or in higher tier drafts and still perform really well. So Toxicroak is gonna be amazing and has been doing really well in this draft already. So Toxicroak, the other Pokemon that can be physical or special, with base 83 HP, it can take some hits, 106 attack, 86 special attack, 85 speed. It's a really well-balanced Pokemon, and then having 2 good abilities in Dry Skin and Poison Touch. So that Dry Skin really going to help that Senti Scorch, and I want to double check. I don't know if Tyrantrum is still weak to water. No, Tyrantrum is not weak to water, but that Dry Skin will help out that Senti Scorch since it is weak to water, and there are some very, very prominent water types in this draft. So, but anyways, the Toxicroak, starting with its physical set, and again, one of the things about Connor's team is there's a lot of boosting that can happen on his team, so it's very hard to prep for this team. You don't know if it's going to be physical, special, boosting, wall breaking. It's a very hard team to prepare for on the offensive side. So physically, Swords Dance, Gunk Shot, Drain Punch, Sucker Punch, Knockoff, Cross Chop, Cross Poison, Dynamic Punch, Earthquake, Fake Out, Foul Play, Ice Punch. What else we got here? Poison Jab, Power Up Punch, Rock Slide, Rock Tomb, Thunder Punch, Throat Chop, X Scissors. So I mean, there's a lot of options for it to cover physically if it wants to, with the ability to boost with Swords Dance and have Sucker Punch. and recovery with Drain Punch is really, really great. So on the special side of this Pokemon, though, oh, interesting note, I didn't actually know this. Toxicroak can learn Bullet Punch as well, which is really good. I really like Pokemon that have these 2 or 3 forms of priority. I think it's super good in team building, for him to cover certain aspects in cleaning up a team. So, but on the special side, we have Icy Wind, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave, Shadow Ball, Vacuum Wave for that priority, and that's really great, that he has stab priority in the special side as well if he wants to run that. He also has Venoshock, but that's really it. Dark Pulse as well. That's kind of really it for its special attacks. Again, just the threat of being able to build both though is great itself. Whether he doesn't have very much coverage in one or the other sides, this being the special side, it's a really great trait, and makes it really hard for the opponent to build against you, if you're being tricky like that. So next on the list here we have Electros. So again, this will be the 4th Pokemon now that can be built physically or specially, and generally runs a mix set or likes to. So I've used Electros a lot in my drafts. This Pokemon, it just has all around great stats. It doesn't have any weaknesses since its ability is Levitate and it's electric type. Base 85 HP, 115 attack, 80 defense, 105 special attack, 80 special defense, and 50 speed. So that 50 speed, while it might look bad to you guys, this Pokemon learns Volt Switch and U-Turn. So this is going to allow his, Tyrantrum or his other setup sweepers or wall breakers to come in basically for free, while Electros is going to take some damage. But with that base 85 HP, 80 defense, 80 special defense, it's going to be a bulky Pokemon. So the set that's generally used on Smogon here, and that's really used often since it covers basically everything, is Volt Switch, Giga Drain, Flamethrower, Knockoff, and then you can switch Knockoff for Acid Spray or Drain Punch. You're generally going to see this type of set on Connor's team a lot, since it's really going to help his other more offensive Pokemon come in and either sweep a team, set up, or clean up, or revenge kill, right? So it does have other options though. Like I said, this is a Pokemon that can also boost. It does get access to Coil. It also has Brick Break, Charge Beam, Discharge, Dragon Tail. So it has a lot of other Roar, Rock Slide, Rock Tomb. It has a lot of coverage in it. It has Toxic, it has T-Wave. So this Pokemon can be built in a number of ways. I hope that Connor will build this in a couple different ways, not just the general Assault Vest set, but still the Assault Vest set is extremely useful to his team. But as I said, this is a 4th Pokemon now that can be built physically or specially, and this is a super, super strong point to Connor's team here. Next to the 5th Pokemon, that's right, 5 Pokemon that can be built special or physical. This is a really hard team to build for its offensive threats, because I mean, if you're building your wall, your dedicated wall, and it's not something like Registeel or Mega Adino with great defense in both special and physical, and you put all your EVs into physically defensive, and then what do you know? He brings a special attacking Toxicroak, and Toxicroak focus blasts your wall, and it 2-hit KOs it or 1-hit KOs it. I mean, it's things like that that's going to surprise people and is going to make Connor's team look really, really good. So I've went over Silvally many times. There's a lot of people that have draft Silvally, but it has Swords Dance. It has a ton of coverage in special and physical. Flame Charge, Flamethrower, Flash Cannon, Ice Beam, Heat Wave, Draco Meteor, Defog, U-Turn, Parting Shot, Aerial Ace, Poison Fang, Psychic Fangs, Shadow Ball, Shadow Claw. Whew. See, U-Turn, it has all these options. X Scissors and Headbutt, Surf, Thunderbolt. It just has a plethora of options, and it can be ran in special or physical very, very well since it's base 95 all the way around. And this being Silvally Water, having that base 120 Water Stab multi-attack, that is going to freaking hurt. So whether it's a defensive set or not, the base 120 plus stab is really strong. So definitely a great pickup by him, having that Silvally Water. Definitely one of the best Silvallies to grab. So this is also a Pokemon that's going to help his offensive threats come in a lot easier with Parting Shot or U-Turn on the correct switch. But I won't spend too much time on Silvally since we've talked about him many times now on here. So next up we have Mr. Mime. I'm going to go through all, like, the reason I'm going to go through all his Pokemon on offense, for offense here, is because all of them can be offensive. And that's the scary part about this team. Just like the other person's team, I'm sorry, I can't remember whose team it was, but it's a very good trait to have on a team. When all your Pokemon can be offensive threats, it makes team building and prepping for very hard. So Mr. Mime, Galar, the Screen Cleaner, it makes it a phenomenal revenge killer because it can come in on somebody trying to boost, clear the screens up, and either Psychic, Ice Beam, Focus Blast. It can trick it. It has access to Nasty Plot as well. Has access to Rapid Spin. Has good coverage: Psychic, Freeze Dry, Focus Blast, Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, Energy Ball, Expanding Force. It can also fake it as well. While it's not going to do much damage, it is good to break Sashers if needed. But this Pokemon, having Screen Cleaner is what really makes it good, is because it can come in, it can either Rapid Spin the rocks away, or it can just come in and clear the screens. It doesn't need to use Defog or anything. This takes a lot of pressure off of Silvally having to run Defog, since it's his only other Pokemon to get rid of hazards. So phenomenal pick here. I think it's a really great, I think this was a T5 if I'm correct. And if it was a T5, I think this is a phenomenal pickup with Screen Cleaners. So since Mr. Rhyme was definitely not T5. But so the last two I'm going to kind of mash up together, since Klinklang, I mean, we all know what Klinklang does: gear grind or shift gear, gear grind. That's really all that it has. Now you can get tricky with it. Do I think you can get super tricky where it's going to really catch somebody off guard? Not really. The trickiest thing you can do is bring it in a defensive way, since it has Magnet Rise, T-Wave, Toxic. That's really, it really doesn't have much more that it's going to do. It has Power Gem, Flash Cannon, Rising Voltage, Gear Grind, and Wild Charge. I mean, it's just really got Steel and Electric type attacks plus Power Gems. So I don't see it being brought too much unless he needs to take out a Fairy type or wall something with that Steel type. So, but last is the Mega Udino. Now this Pokemon is kind of the Mon that's been keeping his team alive, like the Silvally and the Toxicroak or Electros, but it can also be ran offensively with Calm Mind. It has a plethora of coverage here. Calm Mind, Draining Kiss is a super viable set for any fairy, especially with a fairy that has the bulk that it has. Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, Refresh is a super good set. The Refresh set is something that Mega Altaria runs, and it is super potent if brought and brought in correctly. So, but also learns Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Grass Knot, Psychic, and Psyshock, and Surf, and Fire Blast. So this has a ton of coverage. Not to mention it has good utility in the knockoff as well. So this is a really great pick as well. I really would love to see that Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, Refresh set. I think that would be super annoying to deal with and very hard to break if you don't have taunts. So phenomenal offensive lineup here. The reason that I don't rate it too much higher is because the part that's phenomenal about his offense is that it can be run physically or specially. But as for offensive threats, the ones that we're going to see the most is Tyrantrum and Toxicroak. And we've seen Senti-Scorch many times now, Connor bringing it and leading it. But those are generally the two that you're going to see offensively. I expect the other ones to come defensively more often. But do I think he needs to get rid of those Pokemon for more offensive mons? No, I think the part about his offense, while I didn't score it a 10, is it can be run physically or specially on half of his team. And all of his Pokemon can be run offensively. So, I mean, he could generally just bring an offensive, hyper offensive team. He's got Electros to U-turn, Parting Shot with Silvally, and he can just attack if that's what he wants to do. So, I've spent 25 minutes on the offense here. Now you're about to hear me probably speed run through the rest of it like I always do. It's not something I mean to do. It's just I have so much to talk about offensively, and I find myself with less things to talk about defensively, and speed and hazards and momentum wise. I apologize if that bothers people. I'll do my best to break those down a lot better. I sometimes I don't feel like talking for an hour and 10 minutes is what everybody wants. So, but defensively, I scored his team an 8. So I mentioned a lot about his offense, the offensive Pokemon being defensive as well, and vice versa. So you have Scorch, who can be run as a defensive option. That Fire Lash is going to be super annoying to deal with. Coming from a defensive Pokemon that may not have any attack EVs, lowering that defense is going to still force opponents to switch, and take more damage than they want. So this is another good defensive Pokemon. Gourgeist in there to help with that water weakness on the Scorch, as well as Toxicroak absorbing with Dry Skin. But Gourgeist having access to Leech Seed and Synthesis, and just the strong stab moves like Power Whip and Poltergeist. So I just want to bring up Gourgeist here. And Gourgeist having good coverage as well with that Mystical Fire, Moonblast, things like that. It has Pain Split as well if it wants to be extra annoying. Shadow Sneak. So these are the things that we're gonna see Gourgeist be utilizing a lot. I hope to see that Mystical Fire, since it's pretty annoying if Grass types want to switch in and absorb that Leech Seed. But as for other defensive types, we have Electros, Silvally. Mr. Mime is an honorable mention for defensive types, since that screen cleaner is going to be so great, especially with all these people bringing screens or built or drafted a Pokemon that can run screens viably. So, and then you have Mega Audino as well. So, as I mentioned, on top of this, Kling Kling can be brought defensively. I honestly think its defensive set is probably better than its offensive threat. There's so many Pokemon that are going to be able to deal with Gear Grind, unless he gets 2 boosts in or something like that, or 3. But yeah, so Electros being a phenomenal defensive Pokemon for his team, allowing it to get that slow Volt Switch and U-turn. I think this is a Pokemon that's going to be brought almost every single game. It's just too good to pass up. Being able to cover so many options with Flamethrower, Knockoff, Giga Drain, U-turn, or Volt Switch, it just covers a lot of options for his team. Especially those Pokemon that are water types, Volt Switch, grass types, U-turn, or Flamethrower. And then it also has Drain Punch as well. So, I mean, it can cover a whole lot of things. I think it's one of his best defensive Pokemon here. But as I mentioned too, the Silvally Water is a great pickup. Definitely one of the best Silvallis to grab. Now, Silvally is the only Pokemon on his team that has access to Defog. While I think this is very pressuring for Silvally to bring Defog, Mr. Mime does have Rapid Spin and Screen Cleaner. So this takes a little bit of pressure off the Silvally, but Silvally is still more than likely pressured into running Defog just as a fallback scenario, in case he can't bring Mr. Mime to this matchup, or Mr. Mime doesn't have really good options to Rapid Spin rocks away, since this Scorch is not going to like rocks. So, and he's been bringing Scorch a lot. So, but Silvally having U-turn and Parting Shot is also really great. This is going to allow Tyrantrum to come in with Tyrantrum's pretty good defenses, good base HP, easily get that Dragon Dance off after Silvally gets a Parting Shot in. So, and then just Head Smash away, right? So, and we all know how much Head Smash hurts. So, base 150 stab, you basically have to bank on it missing. So, otherwise it's just gonna OHKO. Even if you resist, it might OHKO you. It might 2-hit KO you. But in this low tier draft, I expect a lot of 1-hit KOs, especially after a boost. So, And last, defensively, we have Mega Odino. So, like I said, this is a Pokemon that's kind of been keeping his team alive on paper, anyways. This is going to help Electros and Tyrantrum, Scentiscourge stay alive. These bulkier Pokemon, Gourgeist as well. With that Wish, Protect, and Heal Bell, it'll keep his Pokemon from being toxic, burned, para'd, anything like that. But Mega Odino also has great utility in Knockoff, Confide. What else do we have? Draining Kiss is another great way for it to stay alive if it doesn't want to, rely too much on Wish. And not run Dazzling. It doesn't worry about running Dazzling Gleam. It can just run Draining Kiss. So, also has T-Wave and Toxic. And an interesting one that it has as well that I think a lot of people overlook is Yawn. I think Yawn is really hard to deal with sometimes. Puts a lot of people in weird positions since the Pokemon can be put to sleep if they don't switch out, and then it forces them to switch out and make a play that they don't really want to make. So I think this is a good Pokemon on his team. It being a Mega and having really high stats, and I think it was T5, is kind of wild. So having that Fairy type as well is really great. So unfortunately, not resisting Fighting type. He does have a immunity to Fighting type in Gourgeist. But he is building up that Fighting type weakness between Klinklang and Mr. Mime. I think Tyrantrum is still weak to Fighting as well. So not having that really defensive, bulky Pokemon to resist that Fighting type kind of sucks. But Mega Adino's got enough bulk to deal with neutrally dealing fighting moves anyway. So scored that an 8. I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's just as good as his offense. But next up we have Speed, which I scored a 7. So the thing when I look at this is like I could have scored it lower, like I scored I think Chris and Jared's team. But the thing is he has good not Jared. Chris and somebody else I scored quite low. He has good priority in Toxicroak. He has Dragon Dance in Tyrantrum, and then he has Slow Volt Switch and Parting Shot in Silvally and Electros. So these are going to help his Pokemon come in for free. And the Sucker Punch, Bullet Punch, Vacuum Wave on Toxicroak is really good as well. So his Pokemon is also bulky enough to deal with attacks. Now I know that doesn't really pertain to speed, but it pertains to the fact that the speed isn't really needed too much on his team since he has Dragon Dance and he has Parting Shot and he has Slow Volt Switches and U-turns to get his Pokemon in freely, which I think is like reverse momentum almost, right? Like how Teleport works, right? So the options on his team that are fast though, we have Toxicroak at 80. Yeah, we have Toxicroak at 85, Silvally at 95, Mr. Mime at 90. So his team is not, or Mr. Mime at 100. So his team is not like super slow by any means. It's not like Chris's team or something like that. But it has good bulk, it has decent speed, it has that Slow Volt Switch like I've mentioned. I've mentioned it a few times now, so I won't spend too much time on that. I think Tyrantrum also has the option to just Rock Polish. Yeah. So Tyrantrum also just has the option to Rock Polish if he doesn't want to go for the Dragon Dance. If he needs that 2x speed to outspeed, let's say somebody's bringing a Scarfed Ambipom or something like that, and he's worried about that. So that is something that he can do. So also has Scale Shot to boost the speed if he's only looking to boost speed. He has T-Wave on a number of Pokemon in his draft. So overall, I think he's got a lot of ways to deal with faster Pokemon, and he's got a lot of ways to boost his own speed. So I think this is a fine point to his team. Second to last here, we have Hazards, which I scored a 7. This one, even looking at it now, I feel like I want to score this a 6. It's just that Screen Cleaner on Mr. Mime is going to be so useful against those teams that want to build screens. It's going to deter them from team building screens, and it's going to allow him to have an easier matchup that way just by the presence of it on his team. So That alone, I think, bumps it a point for me. But Silvally being the only Pokemon with Defog on his team really puts a lot of pressure on the Silvally, and probably puts a lot of focus on the opponent to just bring rocks or hazards, and try to wear the opponent down and pressure Connor like that by setting up hazards. So he does have Rapid Spin on Mr. Mime, but the thing is, Mr. Mime, he doesn't really have a lot of chances to just Rapid Spin in somebody's face, since he has quite low stats, base 50 HP, base 65 defense. So, and if you're not putting his EVs into HP or special defense, which is special defense is 90, one of his higher defensive stats, it's probably just going to be one hit by almost anything that's stab, physically especially. So the options for it to Rapid Spin are very, very minimal. So now, does his team care too much about rocks? No, but his team definitely wants to get that Volt Switch or U-turn or Parting Shot off, and look for chances to get Tyrantrum or Toxicroak or any other setup mon in freely and not have to switch too much, especially because Odino can't run leftovers or something like that, so it really has to rely on that Wish or that Draining Kiss to keep itself healthy. So that is the point that I want to make with hazards. As I mentioned with a lot of other teams, the statuses, his team has a lot of options for status and just things, lowering defense and stuff like that. A lot of his Pokemon have Will-O-Wisp, T-Wave, Leech Seed, Toxic especially. So these are really good options to his team, and allows him to team build more freely. So the hazards, though, we're probably not going to see a lot of hazards from Connor, since the only Stealth Rocker on his team is Tyrantrum. I definitely don't expect this Pokemon to be running rocks almost ever. This is such a strong Pokemon in this draft. To be able to just head smash anything, or Scarf head smash, or Band head smash, it's too good to pass up and not just run an offensive Tyrantrum. So he has many ways to chip down Pokemon and not have to rely on rocks. And with the introduction to heavy duty boots, Rock's viability kind of went down just a teeny bit. Still really good by all means, but to rely heavily on rocks to allow you to get those break those sashes and stuff like that, he has options to deal with that. I mean, the U-turn chip, the Volt Switch chip, the Bullet Punch, the Fake Out, the Leech Seed, the Will-O-Wisp or Toxics. I mean, he has a lot of options to get that extra little chip anyways. It's not too huge of a concern for his team to get rocks up. Not to mention, Tyrantrum can just outright sweep a team if they have any chip on them, by getting one Dragon Dance up and just head smashing away, or even outraging if they don't have any Fairy types or Steel types to resist that Dragon. So and as for momentum, which I scored an 8, I think it was last match, was a perfect example of the type of momentum that Connor has. One Dragon Dance and he sweeps an entire team. So that is exactly what Tyrantrum wants to do basically every match. In this type of draft, why not? This Pokemon basically wins free if it gets a Dragon Dance and he's not missing head smashes. That's base 150, stab, rock, and we all know rock, not a lot of Pokemon just outright resist rock. So I just want to double check that here for you guys. Yeah, like we do have fighting types, we don't have a lot of ground types, and we don't have a lot of steel types in this draft. So I mean, that head smash it's gonna hurt. You take it neutrally, it'll probably kill you, especially after a boost. So that in combination with just being able to run Choice Scarf and not have to rely on that Dragon Dance, he has enough attack. Like I said, I think it was 349. Choice Scarf, 349 attack, stab, head smash. That still hurts. Don't forget, that's as much as self-destruct, I believe. I think self-destruct was 150. Or was self-destruct 200 and explosion is 250. Regardless, that's close to self-destruct, and we none of us want to stay in for a self-destruct or explosion. So that's really the point that I'm trying to get at here. But the other side of the momentum here, he has slow Volt Switch and U-turn out of Electros, which I'm going to beat it at his horse here, is going to allow that Tyrantrum or his other setup sweepers to get in, like Toxicroak. potentially Senti Scorch, and potentially Gourgeist, or even Mega Audino with that neat refresh, Calm Mind, Draining Kiss set that I mentioned. And then he also has the Silvally with Parting Shot. Again, rinse and repeat, just like the Electros, going to allow those other Pokemon to come in with reduced damage. His team is bulky anyways, so that reduced damage is going to just help them stay alive a lot longer. Take a little pressure off Mega Audino to constantly wish everybody up to full health. So the momentum is really built around his team getting that sweep, his team getting that setup. But he does have good options for Volt turning, so that Parting Shot being definitely one of the better options here. But Electros having Volt Switch and U-turn really helps it out since it's not walled by a Volt Absorber or a Ground type, so it just ups its viability. Overall, Connor's team is the 38. I think the focal point of his team is how mixed his offense can be, and that's going to be the hardest part about prepping for Connor's team. And as I said, this is the best point to his team. If he can mix this up, I definitely think he can pull out some really great upsets and wins here. So, but yeah, I think this is a great team. Scored at 38, and we'll see you guys on the next one.